everyone, and welcome to another episode of King Me Rev's Hype Podcast, a show where we shine a spotlight on mental health through the powerful stories and experiences of our guests. I am your host, as always, the Rev Dude, coming to you live via Riverside, and today I genuinely believe we have an absolute gem on our hands. The one and only good doctor, Landon Hale. Landon, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Chris. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, man. I've been, very excited for this one. In preparation, I think I watched 6 different podcasts with you on it, and I feel like I got the genuine story, your background down pretty pat. And the more I learned about you, and honestly, the more I've heard of, let me tell you for real though, the New England wrestling scene, especially the folks at Nepwa, especially the folks over at Beyond Wrestling, the Wrestling Open, that whole indie circuit, they love you.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, they love you. They respect you. And the more I've watched of you and your not only your life story, but just, going back and watching different matches. Like I saw Action. You had a great match with Mustafa Ali for the title. Yeah. The more I watch it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, you're probably the first guy. I would say you're probably the first person. I'm a little older than you, but you're probably the first person that actually knows anything about WCW in the 90s.
Yeah.
So like, I almost want to be like, could we be drinking buddies for like 5 minutes? Because I throw no shade at the younger guys, but they're like, wrestling in the 90s, I wasn't alive yet. I have no clue what was going on.
Right. Hey, listen, you throw in a good IPA or a lager, I'm there with you, brother.
All right. It's a deal. And whether you know it or not, and I'll go into this in a second, you've actually kind of changed the lexicon in my household. But so to step into that, you're Landon Hale, of course, better known in the ring as the Good Doctor, is a true hybrid force, cracking backs by day as a licensed doctor of chiropractic and breaking backs by night in the squared circle, right? Yeah. Born and raised in the hills of Pikeville, Kentucky, he was trained by the legendary Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express, who you affectionately call your wrestling dad. And that's where I do my first pause, because my daughter heard me listen to your podcast. Normally my daughter does the podcast with me, right? Mm-hmm. Well, she has her own podcast where she asks more of the fluffy questions, and then I ask the more, down and dirty questions. And she's kind of stolen that whole wrestling dad thing. Now she has people who she thinks of as her wrestling mom and dad. So without you even talking to my own child, you've changed the lexicon in the household. So it's been wonderful. Shout out to Mike Grassa and Katie Prescott. And shout out to Mortar and Jaleesa. Thank you for being the adopted wrestling parents to my JJ. So,
I love it.
Right. So that's one other thing. And then you talked about obviously at a very young age watching wrestling with your father. I did that as well. That was one of my biggest things. And then I feel like I connected with you as a person, which is weird to say because it's just on YouTube. Because my daughter JJ goes with me to just about every wrestling show. We go to 2 or 3 wrestling shows a weekend. So the fact that you had those moments with your father and I'm having with my daughter, it certainly seemed to resonate and connect in our household. So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was great, right?
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I love it. I love the connection. And it doesn't matter if it's wrestling or whatever it is. Like, you find that bond with someone. It's definitely a beauty. I mean, like, and my daughter, she's almost 10 months old now. And so I'm sure we'll probably bond on wrestling or something else as well.
Congratulations on that, my friends.
Thank you, brother.
They are certainly a blessing from God. And I love my children to no end. The other 2 don't seem to care about wrestling, despite the fact that my oldest is actually named after Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin. His name is Sean Austin. And he couldn't care less. He couldn't care less.
Oh my gosh. That is too good. That's amazing.
Yeah. So You've held gold like the APCW Heavyweight Championship, the PW Heavyweight Championship. You've been a runner up in the Scenic City Invitational, which
Yep.
is pretty prestigious, by the way. Good for
Thank
you.
thank you.
Now you're leaning full time into the chiropractic after graduating from Life University and joining Gray Bar Chiropractic on the East Coast.
Yep.
You're a new dad. You're
Hmm.
married to a fellow DC,
Yep.
and you're on the grind, right? So I have to commend you, right? I Most people may or may not have seen this one, but it was probably my first blow up where I got like 60,000 views overnight because I did a little 4 minute video celebrating the work of a few people, and there's people who are out there. Obviously, on the indie scene, everybody's balancing a job, right?
Right.
But you are genuinely not just like a warehouse worker. No shade to warehouse workers, by the way. But
Right.
you are a doctor, okay? You are doing genuine, like stringent work on a regular basis, and I have to commend you. And I genuinely, here at my nonprofit where we help men with their mental health, if it's okay with you, I want to use you as an example. Like, hey,
Sure.
look at this guy. You're 32 if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. 32. Yep.
Okay. So I just turned 40, all right? So like listen, here's this guy who's 32. He's got a great life. I'm sure it's a bit of a grind, but you're a doctor and a professional wrestler. Who says you can't have it all in this world, right? You got to work your butt off to get there. It's not free. It doesn't come cheap, and it'll never be easy. But if it's worth it, and God bless you, you could be like Landon Hale someday and get it all. So
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's definitely a grind for sure. So it's like, again, going back to, like we joked about, like, oh, nothing against warehouse workers, like, or even just, grocery store clerks, whether you're working
right.
at a local fast food restaurant, doctor, lawyer, whatever it may be. Yeah, and this is something that my wife and I prayed over because again, it was like, we wanted this life, and I always say that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Like it's one of those things where you have to understand that he's got a better plan for you
Mm,
that you're
yeah.
expecting. And so yeah, we can pray into it. But at the end of the day, it's all about what he has for you. And so like I could say, oh man, I want to be here, I want to be there, or I want to do this. But then at the end of the day, he's led me down a road where I said, hey, it's going to be a little bit bumpy, but you just have to hold my hand and trust me. And again, I'm also a juggler as well because I'm juggling being a dad, being a husband, being a chiropractor, being a wrestler. And so it's just a lot of different things that, like come as one. And, I'm doing a healthy balance of it, or at least trying to. And I need to give myself more credit than what I usually give myself. Because again, we're all hard on ourselves at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think with what I am doing right now, I'm pretty proud of myself with what I'm doing.
See, and that's wonderful to hear. You know, I'll have to send you the video later, but I made a really good video about Britt Baker, and the reason why it blew up is because she liked it and reposted it. To be frank with you, and I feel like when I was thinking about this whole thing, I was like, I don't want to make it beforehand. Maybe that's weird before I do it before we actually talk to each other. I'd
Yeah.
rather save it to tell you live that if you're okay with it, I wanted to make a similar video about you because you're also a doctor and you also juggle the same professions and stuff, and you're an example. If my daughter was here, she would ask you the question of, you know, what do you say to the kids who look up to you?
Yeah. It's I mean, it's tough, and so here's the way that I look at it is that, and this is something I've talked with my therapist about too, and this is something that's helped me, and so it's like for the people that wants to inspire kids, the way that I look at it is when I walk out the curtain, imagine that 7-year old sitting there watching you, or better yet, with my dad, like being a 5-year old sitting, like my 5-year old self sitting out in the audience and then being with their mom or being with their dad and then just being that role model or being that example. And it's the cliche, like the John Cena says never give up, or like I was a big fan of Rey Mysterio, like always being the underdog. And sometimes I always feel like, not saying I do feel like an underdog sometimes, but it feels like it's an uphill battle. And I feel like there are times where I win. There's other times I feel like I'm defeated. But again, God works in mysterious ways, and so when I walk out there and I perform, I want to be the best example that I can. Again, always work hard, trust in God, or even if you're not a believer, just have faith in yourself that you can achieve great things in life. And it's not hard unless you say, or unless you think it's hard, or unless you say it's hard. There's always going to be a way in order for you to reach your dreams.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and that's something that during our services we really strive to give those examples to these men and women that I feel like people have lost a sense of purpose in our society, and the whole idea is to remind them that you do have a purpose. You are a gift to this world, and if you believe in yourself, as those above have believed in you, you will achieve what you're meant to achieve, right? So I couldn't agree with you more on that. And the other one you said is Rey Mysterio. I love the fact that we both loved who were once thought of as underdog. Um, Shawn Michaels was my guy very young. 1989, 1990, the Rockers. He had the amazing ability to beat Marty Jannetty up and then go solo. But most people, they think of him as one of the greatest of all time, but they don't realize, like, back in 1990, he was just thought of as some skinny, he would never be the heavyweight champion kind of guy, right? He was 100% an underdog, and that's why one of the reasons I loved Shawn Michaels as a very young age, because I was always like the runt of the litter, getting picked on, the youngest of, I have 9 brothers, and he inspired me to just fight in life, to be honest with you. So the fact that you had Rey Mysterio, I was like, all right, we got that same synergy going. You know what I mean? Like, we have that same flow and stuff, and I love it, because once again, if you would have asked somebody in 1995 if Rey Mysterio would be a world champion someday, they would have laughed you out of the building, and poof,
He
you
achieved.
know, he achieved it, and he's still going. The
He,
man is like 50 years old, and he's still going. Okay, so
it's crazy too. Like Rey Mysterio, AJ Styles, they're like 49 and 50, and they're still going, and that's crazy. Like
still
that's
going.
that's my goal. I'm hoping that I can get to that age where I can still keep, or like at 49 and 50, that I can still keep going. So we'll just have to wait and see. But no, Rey Mysterio,
Right.
that's my dude right there.
Yep. Who's that flying out the sky?
All right,
And
well,
man, I mean, back in WCW. Once again, we could probably talk about WCW all day, because I once again I've tried to bring up like WCW in the '90s. People just like, I don't know, dude. I was like, oh, come on, someone's got to go back and watch this stuff, please.
yeah.
So I got to get that IPA for you. You said. The other thing that I kind of was excited for is, you're from Kentucky, and Kentucky holds a very special place in my heart, because I was in Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training in the Army. So,
Thank you.
granted, yeah, thank you. Like, you were like, I think it's like 4 hours from Fort.
It's give or take. Like I know it's very
Right.
Kentucky, so I do believe it is Fort. Or I think Fort Knox is about. Yeah, I want to say it's about 4 hours, and I use Fort Knox as my analogy. Like, man, it's locked up like Fort Knox because it's locked up like crazy.
It is. When I was in basic, they told us that they had. I mean, they could have been blowing smoke for all I know, because I was an 18-year-old idiot. I'm gonna listen to anything they tell me,
Yeah,
but they would tell us that there's always 3 satellites watching, and they had all these, like, they were almost like scary ghost stories about all the surveillance they had. And I was like, I'd rather not find out. So I'm going to believe every single one of these things you're telling me, because I do not want to find out the hard way.
right. Yes,
But Kentucky holds a special place in my heart for having that time where I feel it was like a genesis in my life, where I went from being a 17-year-old kid to a soldier, right? So once again, and it's rains every day.
yeah,
We had the slogan, "If it ain't raining, we ain't training." And then I would always be singing Elvis. He has the Kentucky rain keeps falling down. So
love it.
every day it rained in Kentucky. We lived in soaking wet conditions, running around, and it was just wild. It was just wild. But every once in a while, I tell myself I got to get back down there just to see it, because it's been 20 years. It's actually been just over 22 years now since I've been in Kentucky doing all that stuff, and it was a beautiful state, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you have to go back for sure. I know there's people all the time that they talk about Kentucky, but they mention like the western and the central part. I'm like, you need to go through the Appalachian Mountains, where it's very up close and personal, and just the beauty of it. Like you have to experience it. And so I'm hoping that if you do go back, that you're actually experiencing the eastern portion, like because I know it's more like southern. I guess is it
Yeah,
southern? Yeah, more central southern. And so I want you to experience mountains as well. So you
yeah.
definitely
All of its beauty. Inhale all of its beauty.
yeah.
My brothers want to go down there just so they can go to bourbon country, but
Oh
I'm
my
like, I'm like, all right, you guys go get drunk and I'll just stare at the mountain. Sounds good, you know?
What's funny is that I'm in North Carolina, so it's funny that my boss he's a big Duke fan and I'm a Kentucky Wildcat fan. So just me being a Kentucky Wildcat fan in North Carolina doesn't mix well. But my boss he's a big jokester and he's like, there's only two good things that come from Kentucky and that's bourbon and Christian Laettner. and and for the non-sports people out there, we all hate Christian Laettner. He played for Duke basketball and was just a dirty player to Kentucky, and we didn't like him, and so that's his running joke to us. And I'm like, oh yeah, we still got more titles than you, so that's home.
Boom. In
Yeah,
your face. I love it.
praise.
That's honestly, I when I was about 10 years old, we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a lot of strange heat from Phoenix Suns fans, especially. And I would be like, I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I don't understand, like,
Two.
you know what I mean? Yeah, I love the fact that I on one of the podcasts you're like, everybody but Green Bay, you love Green Bay, so.
Don't Hey, I even said this too in a podcast, and I don't even know if you caught this, but I was like, we are the worst best team in the NFL. Like we
Oh
made it
yeah.
to the playoffs. We were up so much on the Bears, and then they're like, you know what? Let's just lose. Why not? Like
Wow.
they're super.
Winning. Do you want to keep working there the rest of the weeks, or do you want to just go home now? Let's go home.
Winning for schlubs. Like let's
Right.
go home. So
But yeah, the Suns fans would try to be like, oh, blah 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 blah, and I had the privilege of informing all of these people that, hey, guess what? The Phoenix Suns have never won a championship, and this is back in the 90s where the internet's not readily available. So most people didn't believe me because what some people may or may not know that when the Suns actually lost in the championship, the city of Phoenix still had a parade. So there are people who are my age that went to a parade when they were 4, 5, or 6 years old, somewhere in that time frame,
oh no.
celebrating second place in the NBA. But them being so young, they thought they had won the title. So they're like, "Oh, we won! We're the greatest basketball team." So no one believed me until like high school when we were able to go on like, you know, Wikipedia type stuff, and I was able to print it out and be like, "You've never won anything, guys." At that time, we had like 14 or something, 14, 15. I'm like, I have 14, you have 0. So with all due respect, just sit down and leave me alone, okay?
Yeah, and now we got what 18, 19?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
way more now. So
we got more. Yes.
we win. Um, I guess jumping into it now that all the fun's out of the way.
Yeah.
My first question, and I have to ask this because I've been talking to so many younger wrestlers over the time of this podcast and just over the past couple of months. Okay, and I feel like you were the first person with the genuine, unique credentials to maybe put an eye opener to this. I wouldn't say problem, but I mean the question here is this, right? For those younger wrestlers, like whether they're 20 or 30 years old, I've talked to so many that don't seem to have maybe a great, and they've admitted because I've asked them, a great warm up routine or a great cool down routine or a great way of trying to really take care of their bodies, right? Doing this professional wrestling thing.
Yeah.
So my first question to you is, what advice would you give to them? Obviously, it should be come see the doctor and let him work with you
Yeah.
and pay for his advice for sure.
Yeah.
But outside of that, what would you say to these guys? and
I
girth?
would I would say in my world, and again, chiropractic, we're very holistic, and there's always going to be a time and place for medicine, medications. I have nothing against it. I always say that our bodies are very smart. When we walk outside and it's cold and we don't have a jacket on, we're going to freeze. If we go outside in Phoenix and we have a jacket on and we're sweating, we got to take that jacket off because our bodies are very smart in understanding what's going on. So what's happening is that our bodies send us signals. So it could be headaches, it could be numbness and tingling in the arms, it could be digestion issues for all we know. And your body is saying, hey, there's something going on. So what we do is we find what's called a subluxation, which is a misalignment in the spine. And luckily I'm in my office now. It's a misalignment in the spine and it puts pressure on your nervous system. So as we look right here where the nerves are, if there's a misalignment and there's pressure that's being put on it, that nerve flow is not working at 100%. So when people say like, oh, they have pain, the purpose of that is there's a misalignment that's putting pressure on that nervous system. It's not working at 100%. So think of it as a dimmer switch. When there's not enough power going to the light because the dimmer switch is down, it's not working at 100%. So it not only do the nerves affect each muscle, but it affects each organ. So it's all about lifestyle. So it's not just about the chiropractic adjustment itself, but it's about lifestyle. How do you take care of your body? And again, this isn't a knock on anybody because you live your life how you want to. So this isn't a judgment thing. I mean, here's the thing: if you drink 7 days a week, if you vape all the time, if you're not exercising and get your body moving, if you're not putting in the right nutrients in your body, then you obviously you're going to see the results. And so you have the person that's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pop an ibuprofen. The thing is that it's masking the symptom. It's not getting the deep root cause of what's going on. So for people that have low back pain, they pop it like it's candy. And that's not going to get to the root cause of it. That's literally just putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound and just call it a day. And then and here's the other kicker as well. When that tolerance gets kicked in, you're going to have to take more and more and more. And then that's going to put a lot of damage to your organs in itself. So my recommendation is always go see a chiropractor. But I always say make sure that they take X-rays because heaven forbid you go to a chiropractor, they adjust you without having X-rays, then we can kind of see like, okay, does this person have a fracture? Does this person have something else that's going on that we don't know about? So that way, their understanding of how their body works, the doctor can look at the spine, see what's going on, and then help remove those misalignments. So that way, your body's feeling better and functioning better. Being able to go work out, so that way you're constantly getting stronger, getting the right strength that you need for what we do, because it does take a physical toll on our body. Massages help out all the time. Eating properly. Again, don't. I mean, if you think about it, people nowadays we get so caught up in a routine where we're like, okay, let's go out and grab fast food because it's just quicker. But the thing is that yes, is it quicker and convenient? Yes, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be nutritious to what your goals are. And so I meal prep, making sure I balance out my protein, carbs, and fats. So that way I'm able to take my lunch with me. So that way I'm able to eat dinner at the house and, just being able to have the right amount of servings. There's a lot of people out there that they don't understand what's going on with their body. That's just because they're not properly educated, because they're always taught, hey, take this medicine, have a good day, versus understanding and researching the knowledge when it goes on with their body. So I would say chiropractic care is very important. Make sure they take x-rays on top of that. Proper nutrition style, you want to make sure that you have a nice healthy balance of meals, with proteins, carbs, and fats. And then exercise. Get your body moving. Even if you don't like to work out, definitely go outside and get moving. Run. Do something. So that way your body can thank you later for getting some good movement in. So that way you're not stiff all the time. And so those are some good tips. And I know it's a very long-winded thing, but that's just the way that I see it as a chiropractor. When I see people all the time, like wrestlers, like, oh yeah, like I got this, but I'm taking this medicine, or oh, I got this, but I'm like,
Right.
just and again, proper warm ups, dynamic stretches, whether you're getting your body moving, whether it's arm circles, leg swings, body weight squats, push ups, just something to get the blood flowing, and then a cool down after the match where it's static stretches. So that's when you're doing the hold for 10 seconds of stretches of different body parts, whether it's the chest, the back, the legs, the arms. So that way the blood is rushing back to those extremities and those areas. So that way you're preventing from pooling in the blood and you're about to pass out as soon as you get back because of all the adrenaline and excitement and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a long way.
Awesome. So wonderful explanation. Genuinely appreciate it. And I've always used, well, at least most recently, I've actually been using AJ Styles because AJ Styles, they've John Cena went on record to talk about how much warm ups and everything AJ Styles has to do to be able to perform the way he does in the ring at such a high level. And I'm like, well, listen, if a guy like AJ Styles is doing it, you should probably do it too. Like, who can you? I don't know how many people I could name in the world of anything to be like better than AJ Styles. You know what I mean? So like, if a guy as good as he is doing it, it's probably for a genuine reason, right?
1,000%.
He knows I might not know shit, but AJ Styles knows and he's doing it. So I love the fact that you said all that. Genuinely listening to you previously, and I wanted to wait until we got into this a little bit more. I've been thinking about it myself. I actually recently signed up to see a local chiropractor myself, because I am joining NEPWA.
No.
I am joining NEPWA. I don't think I could ever actually be a professional wrestler, to be fair.
Right.
However, especially because I just turned 40, that'd be a little crazy. But I want to be in the wrestling profession itself. And I had a wonderful conversation with the owners and with NEPWA, I should say. And shout out to Chase Del Monte. He's a great guy.
Oh,
and I love this guy. He's had two. I've had 2 genuinely hours talking to this man on separate occasions, and I can't wait for him to be my coach, is what I'm going to say. But I told myself that before I got into the ring and embarrassed myself as an old man, I at least need to go get checked out and make sure everything is running in optimal, being efficient. So you've inspired me to make sure I do that first. So
I appreciate that, man.
if nobody else takes your advice, Mr. Evans did, all right? So the Rev Dude is here to say, you should have listened to him. I did, bro. What's the big deal? He's a doctor. He knows what he's talking about.
Doctor's orders. I appreciate it.
So you learned how to take damage before you learned anatomy. How does that change how you treat patients today, both physically and when they're dealing with the mental side of the recovery?
It's and like I said, before going to chiropractic school, I actually trained before I trained with Robert Gibson. I was training with a guy by the name of Mike Sampson, and he was a former WWF jobber back in the day, and so like understanding like when I took my first few back bumps, I was in severe pain, muscle spasms. I was like, okay, I can see why it builds a callus. It does give me a good sense of like how your body works. Just understanding the mechanisms of like what the spine really does, what muscles, what nerves are involved. And I've been very fortunate enough, and I'm not going to mention names because it's HIPAA. But two of my wrestling buddies, when I was doing my intern, or not my internship, but they have inpatient student clinic, then they have outpatient clinic, and then they have at Life University, it was Peak, which is essentially a preceptorship. When I was doing my internship, or when I was doing my outpatient clinic, I had 2 wrestlers that would come in and just, understanding their spine and being like, okay, like being able to adjust them, being able to understand how their body works. And so that kind of gives me an understanding of, because I'm going to see every different population outside of just wrestlers. Because when we go through school, we're in this process of like, okay, I have this person next to me, and this person's in their 30s. I have this person next to me as well. They just graduated from undergrad, and they're like in their 20s. And we're all thinking it's the same population, but everyone's bodies are different when it comes to how you take care of them. You have elderly patients that's in their like 70s, 80s, 90s, seeing their chiropractor for the first time, and there's different ways of managing that case. I saw a baby not too long ago, like 5-6 weeks old, just being able to adjust little man, just making sure that his body is nice and moving. Because the thing is that the day that we're born is the day that we're misaligned. And so that's where we look into, okay, the doctor's pulling the baby's head from the womb, puts about 10, 20, 30 pounds of pressure on the baby's neck. So we want to make sure that we check the baby's spines, so that way when that baby grows up, that he or she is getting the best result possible. And because again, the way that we look at it is that posture plays a big role in our spinal health. We're driving a certain way. We're on our phones a lot. We're on the computer a lot. And so now, like, you have to think about the wrestlers and how much damage that they're putting to their body. And they say, like, oh, yeah, I've been wrestling for X, Y, Z years. And then you realize, like, when you look at their spine, you're like, oh, yeah, it's this is your first time seeing your spine. Well, I can see why this is the first time you're seeing me. And so and like I had a patient in here that was a wrestler, and like, again, he just started wrestling, but he has, like, his spine is in pretty good shape. And that's where we look into, understanding the mechanisms by body slams, by taking butt bumps, back bumps, front bumps, and just understanding, like, how your body takes all that damage. So it does switch the mind up a little bit when it comes to, like, because you think about it, it's whiplash injuries, because they say 25 to 35 mile an hour car crash is the equivalent of a back bump or of taking a turnbuckle bump. And so you have to look at how thick or how inflamed their ligaments and tendons are. So that's something that I'll look into. Sorry, that was like a very, like, huge circle of a ramble, but that kind of, like,
No, it honestly, it answered a couple of the questions I was going to be asking, to be fair, because, I was going to be like, my thought process was going to be like, do you think having lived this physical grind gives you an edge over doctors, over other doctors? And you essentially just answered some of those questions for me, because you just eloquently wrapped it up. And I feel like, especially maybe wrestling fans, we don't see what it's like to just take a regular bump, right? The average American male has thrown a pigskin. We've thrown a baseball. We've played maybe hockey or something. But any wrestling fan, they've never even been inside a wrestling ring, right? And they might be like, oh, well, I did wrestling in high school. That's a different wrestling, friend. That's a different beast. Yes, you can still get pretty messed up and all that stuff. I'm not pretending like that's not a thing. But, shout out to the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. But what I'm saying is, who wrestled with a broken freaking neck, but that's not the same as what you do on a regular basis. So I love how you're able to wrap that up. I guess one thing I should be throwing in there is, did your wrestling style evolve once you truly understood what the bumps were doing to the body?
No, I still kept them the same. Like I said, my favorites growing up was Rey Mysterio, and then AJ Styles followed, and I've always been a fan of the high flying, and so I still do it. Now I will say there are certain moves that, like, I try to stay away from, just for the sole purpose of I broke my wrist doing a frog splash,
Yeah.
but, like, I'll still do a phoenix splash, or I'll still do a twisty backflip or whatever. But there are some things that I try to take out, and it's not just for injury purposes. Some of them can be, but there are some that I'm just kind of like, I don't really see a purpose of doing this. I may throw it out every now and then, but again, you don't want to give everyone your whole playbook. Like, you want to leave
Right.
fresh in the tank for other shows, because you don't want to give them all everything. So
Right. Right. I mean, unless you're Ric Flair, you can't just do the same 7 things over and over again, right? So.
I mean, well, technically you can, but if you do it at the same place all the time, you'd be like, all right, can we get some new material?
Yeah. But hey, Ric Flair's the goat for sure.
Yeah.
No shade to Ric Flair. Does your medical knowledge ever fight your instincts in the moment?
Not really. When I broke my wrist, and then this is the weird thing, and I don't know if it's all men, or I'm sure, like, we all relate in some way, but, like, we'll have a stomach ache and we're down for the count, like we act like we got the bubonic plague, but, like, we'll break something, we'll fracture something, like, oh, like, wow, like, what happened here? So I did a frog splash. It was in a match at Fight Life. It was me versus TJ Crawford versus Ricky Smokes, and shout out to him because he got signed yesterday, which is pretty cool. Uh, and when we had our match, I did a frog splash, and I noticed that as I came down, because before that I was doing heavy hang cleans, like, I'm talking 255 on the bar, and it was like, slipping off my wrist, and then that ended up adding extra pressure to it. Still wrestled through the match, and I'm just like, wow, my wrist really hurts. And I got some ice from the back, and I went home, and I had to cancel my booking that next morning. My wife's like, "Oh, you probably just sprained it." And I'm like, "No, let's go," because my wife's talking about this earlier. My wife's a chiropractor, and so we went to her office that she was at, and then she was like, "Oh yeah, you fractured your wrist." And so that's when I went to orthopedist. I told them, I'm like, "I know I fractured my scaphoid," and they're like, "Yeah, you definitely need surgery." So I mean, it definitely preps me a little bit, like understanding what's going on, and again, we're all gonna have like small little takes, like little tweaks here and there, maybe one day after a show, I'll be like, oh, like my toe hurts or something. That's just because like I've ran so much, or like a wrestler steps on my foot just by accident, or like I take a back bump the wrong way. I was like, wow, like maybe a board was out, or even just taking a wrong back bump. So it's why it's always proper to do the proper mechanics when it comes to the wrestling and understanding the actual bumps to take, so that way you're not messing yourself up later.
Yeah, and oh man, I have to. Yeah, you did it, so I have to do it. Shout out to Ricky Smokes. I love that guy. So happy for him, and swipe right to be moving on up in the world. My favorite story was my daughter and I went to Beyond Wrestling. They had a show called Bound for the Floor. I think it was like October 13th. It was the same day that they were taping it. The big TNA match that night was the Hardys versus the Dudleys one more time.
Yep.
And Ricky was he was not wrestling that day. He was just chilling at the bar essentially. And I go to shows and I record and I take photographs.
Yep.
So I had one camera in my hand that was my video camera, my photography camera in my other hand. So I'm sitting there like this doing weird stuff. And I had my watch on at the time, and I got a text from my daughter saying, "Ricky's watching the dog. I'm going to go to the bathroom." And I was like, "What?" So my daughter has her emotional support stuffed animal, and she had Ricky Smokes babysit it so she could go to the bathroom.
That's awesome.
So ever since then, the King family, we love you, Ricky. We're so happy for you. We'll be seeing him this Friday at Pandemonium and Chaotic Wrestling in Lowell, Massachusetts. So this won't come out until next Friday anyways, but we're going to bring a nice big thing of flowers, because when a man does it right, you give him flowers. That's what you do. So
there you go.
Flowers and a card. We're going to give him his flowers and a card because he damn well deserves it. He's a hardworking man. Also, you said the other name, TJ Crawford. I can officially announce TJC will be on the podcast next week, everybody. So very excited for that one as well. Two wonderful guys. And this family loves them. Hopefully, Ricky, you loved your Christmas card, buddy. All right, so. But yeah, no, that's honestly, and you said it yourself. Like, so I got in a car accident a couple years ago. I broke my kneecap. I did the whole, walk it off, right? And the next day I was like, ah. And then I went and did an x-ray, and they were like, I was like, just tell me I'm a crybaby and send me home. And they're like, nah, your leg's broken. You can't just do that. And I was like, okay. You win. So it's. Do you see that struggle from your side? Because you're still in the wrestling business. You see people hurt. You have to, as a doctor. I mean, I would assume. I don't want to be too presumptuous here. Be the first one in the room to be like, go get that checked out, right?
Right. I've had people where again, like people brought me stage before, like at shows where I wasn't even on, and they're like, hey, like, can you check this person out? And again, like I can't just, and again, it's against my licensure just to be like, oh yeah, like, let me adjust this person. Like it's never
right. It's not.
It's always different protocols of what's going on. Like I remember there was a match at Deadlock Pro, and there was a wrestler that ended up it took his breath away when there was a move that happened, and then they ended up throwing the X's, and they're like, hey, like one of the referees was like, hey, like you're a chiropractor, can you come check him out? And we got some ice, made sure everything was good, just going through some tests, and I'm just like, yeah, like the last thing I want to do is try to adjust something that wasn't there, or try to adjust something that's like something that's heaven forbid fractured or anything like that. And then later on, I'm like, you need to go see a chiropractor or at least a physical therapist if you're not wanting to go down a chiropractic route, but make sure they take x-rays. And then he messaged me like a few weeks later, was like, hey, just so it turns out they called it a rib subluxation. I'm like, okay, so your rib was out of place. So essentially he took a wrong back bump, and that's what caused the subluxation to happen. So So yeah, I'm very cautious when it comes to that, but I don't mind checking people out, like especially like if people have concussions or if they think they have concussions, like, hey, do you mind checking him? I always do my concussion test and like, okay, this person's good to go, and just kind of do that. But it feels good to like have that in the back and just to make sure that everyone is at least good to go or in some sort of way, shape, or form.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely great to. I mean, obviously, as a person who's worked in the science industry myself, you can't just start walking around willy nilly and giving people advice. You have to go. There's proper protocols for everything, but it's great to know that at least someone's there, a professional's there for the long term, something that can actually. Like you said, the concussions. I mean, because that's a huge thing. The CTE, or the last 20 years, we've learned so much about it. So it's great to have someone there who could at least be able to diagnose and check on someone and be like, hey, man, let's get you out of here. Let's get you the proper, to the hospital or whatever it is. So,
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%.
it's great. So do you, what are your home, I'm curious because I want to make sure people are checking you out. What are your home, because you talked about deep, what are your home, like because I've seen you in action wrestling, right? Are you which places down south are you normally wrestling in on a regular basis? Which organizations?
So mostly it's Apple City Championship Wrestling. They're based out of Hickory, North Carolina, which is a little north of Charlotte. They're a growing product. They're actually putting a lot of time and time and effort into their brand, which is great to see. I'm wrestling for PWF, which is Colby Carino's promotion. I do wrestle for Action. And I do wrestle for them. I would say like I oftenly work there just because it is a bit of a drive, and they run on Fridays where as soon as I'm off of work, I have to go straight like 6-7 hours there.
Yeah.
So that things can get dicey there, but I do wrestle there sometimes. I've been wrestling for Blood, Sweat, Tears. That they brought me in a lot, and they're great. And then I wrestle for Ironheart Pro sometimes out in Minnesota. And yeah, so that's about it right now. I'm actually about to do my first Mania weekend, so there's a lot of opportunities on the rise. So I just gotta make the most of every opportunity.
Of course. And, I can't wait to. This is going to be my third year in a row going to WrestleMania. So maybe I get to see you there. That'll be fun.
Yeah,
Action, I actually was able to be at Action Dean 3 in Philadelphia
that's
for the 2300 Arena, which was great because I had no idea Ref Gina, was going to be there whatsoever. I got a pretty good video of her telling Wheeler Yuta where to get out of the building. But since then I've been kind of keeping my eye on Action. So seeing your work there as well was like, ah, man, there's this guy. I want to bring this guy back up. You talked about BST. Me and JJ will be at BST. I actually have two podcasts we're recording on Saturday. One with Papi Guapo Diego Alvarez, and one with Gia Savitz, who did a documentary about his work, The Match to Kill. And then right after that, we have to rush over to BST at the Tackle Box, I want to say it is, where Dijak is going to be defending his title, which he was just on the podcast. Technically, when this comes out, he's the last. Today's Wednesday. His is going to drop this Saturday. But yeah, I want to make sure people check out your work who hasn't. How I knew, another reason why I knew Nepwal love you so much is because as soon as you put out your post about how you were looking for Mania work, everybody from the top down in Nepwal started reposting it immediately.
I
So,
love them. Yeah, they've been a day one group whenever I came up to the Northeast, and they brought me in like their own. And again, shout out to Chase, shout out to Scott, shout out to everybody that's there. So they're a good group of people. So when you go there, give them my love for me, please.
100%. Yeah, Caroline too. Caroline's like the head of like me and my daughter call her like the head of the trainees because she's always up front doing all the stuff. So when she reposted it, I was like, hey, just so you know, this guy's gonna be on the podcast.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out. But so I guess final question, and then I'll let you run back to work and all that stuff, right? So looking back on all that, it's really good that you pushed yourself towards healing, right? And I'm sure you would recommend people taking their time off. speaking of Napois, right? Yesterday we got some unfortunate news that someone like Jose Zamora is actually injured, is going to be out for a few months, right?
Yep.
So I guess for someone like Jose, who has a great mental attitude about it, or someone who's been in a situation like how you broke your wrist, what advice do you have, not just physically as a doctor, but just mentally as a professional wrestler, do you have for those people going into maybe their first injury that's going to take them out of action for a while?
The setback is going to be ready for the comeback. The comeback's going to be very strong, and when that time comes, they're going to make a lot more noise. You know, when I broke my wrist and I was out, I was like, oh man, like I don't know how the momentum's going to get caught back up. And literally months after I came back, Phoenix State Invitational, wrestled Mustafa Ali, went to Germany, went to Thailand. There's a lot of different things. So, and with Jose especially, because I love that dude, he's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of charisma, both in and out of the ring. No doubt he's going to be back better than ever. So, praying for him as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. A couple of months ago, I got to meet him up front for the first time, and I was actually kind of surprised. Thank you, Jose, because he was like, "Oh, I've seen your videos and I liked them," and I was like, "You saw my videos?"
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I went to a show on Sunday and some guys walked by and they're like, "Hey, look, the Rev dude's here," and I was like, "Huh? Me? No."
Yeah.
But shout out to those kind of people because I've definitely been, like I said, I broke my leg in that car accident and I was out of action for a while. And it was difficult for me as a man just to like ask my 10-year-old daughter to like carry the milk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very difficult for me mentally, all that stuff to get it going. So that's why I kind of want to just pay that forward to people like Jose who are I couldn't agree with you more, are super tremendous. The gimmick he has is genius. I mean, just with the whole thing is just like why didn't anybody else think of this? This guy's brilliant. So much love from the King family to Zamora. It's very unfortunate because he just had won the Chaotic Wrestling Tag titles with DJ Powers. Shout out to DJ, he's great too. And we definitely hope that he comes back stronger than ever. And from what I've heard of the Napois family, if he's having a bad day, he's got like 65,000 people to call, right? So there's something that's something I've heard over and over again from wrestling professionals, regardless of the company they worked for or what school they went to, that it seems that wrestling in general, there's a close-knit situation where you guys just kind of look out for each other. So much love and appreciation and respect. Once again, I should say thank you, Landon, for being here today. I know you got to go and do your thing. I'll have to buy you that beer sometime if you ever back up in New England because we miss you.
I miss you guys too. I'll definitely let you know for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I already shouted out that TJC is next and everybody else. Very excited about that. I love this guy. He's so great. I'm sure you could tell more stories about him than I could. But for anybody else, there will be a quick, brief interruption, and then you'll see my face one more time, but Landon has to go. So thank you again, Landon, for being here, and everybody else have a good day. Hello, everyone. You just saw the ending of me with Landon Hale. Did you get enough? Probably not, but hopefully the next time Landon is up here in New England, he will be able to have a much longer conversation with me because I did have about 47 other questions I'd love to ask him, but he is a doctor and a professional wrestler. So guess what? He has a very limited time schedule. I couldn't respect and appreciate that more, that he actually made an hour just for me. I am very appreciative. I am very thankful. I am very grateful for any person, any human being, regardless of gender, race, sex, yada, 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 who makes time in their day to speak to me and put themselves out on this platform. I respect Landon. If you need more of him, please go ahead and make sure to go to all those different promotions or go back and watch some of the stuff he did at Chaotic Wrestling or Wrestling Open. He had some freaking amazing matches. I almost said the bad words, but I didn't. He had some freaking amazing, incredible matches, and I definitely recommend them, especially the one with Mustafa Ali. It is on YouTube with Action Wrestling for the TNA X Division Championship. Okay, it's incredible. So once again, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for listening to my rants and raves as a crazy person. And I will see you next time, my friends. Peace.